What if, the absolute most successful person in your office right now isn't actually the smartest?
Right, or even the hardest working.
Exactly. I mean, what if they're just the one who sort of realized that morality is basically just like a fairy tale we tell the losers?
It's a dark thought, but
Right.
yeah.
But just think about it for a second. Think about the people you've actually watched climb the ladder in your own life.
Oh, we all know one.
We do. The ones who just effortlessly steer the narrative. They survive the brutal layoffs. They always secure the funding for their projects.
And they always land on their feet.
Always. And if you actually sit back and watch them closely enough, it becomes blindingly obvious that they are playing a completely different game than the rest of us.
A completely different sport, really.
Right. Because, we are conditioned from a very, very young age to believe in this transparent meritocracy.
Work hard, be honest, get rewarded.
Exactly. You do good work, you play by the rules, you don't lie, and the universe just, eventually hands you a reward.
The gold star syndrome.
Yes. But today, in this deep dive, we are staring down a piece of text that makes a radically, radically different claim about how the world actually works.
And it is a deeply unsettling reality to confront, honestly.
Oh, totally. Because it argues that the underlying mechanics of control, of real power, they have absolutely nothing to do with being good.
Nothing at all. The gap between what we are taught in grade school and what actually dictates survival in the real world is, well, it's vast.
It's basically a canyon.
Right. The actual levers of true success, they usually operate entirely in the shadows. They're completely divorced from any concept of fairness.
Fairness doesn't even enter the equation.
No, it doesn't. And when you begin to really observe the actual physics of human dynamics, the way people actually behave when money or status is on the line, the illusion of meritocracy just falls apart instantly.
It just shatters, and that's exactly what we're exploring today, the architectural blueprint of that much darker reality.
It's a fascinating mission we have today. It really is. So for everyone listening, you have highly likely heard of the source material we are looking at today.
Well, it's inescapable.
It is an absolute juggernaut. It's a permanent fixture in the cultural zeitgeist at this point. I'm talking about The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene and Joost Elfers.
Yeah, it's one of those exceptionally rare volumes that has somehow managed to cross over into just every conceivable demographic.
Right. You see it sitting on the mahogany discs of Fortune 500 CEOs.
It's quoted heavily in hip-hop.
Exactly. It's passed around prison libraries. It's whispered about by political aides in back rooms. It is everywhere.
It honestly functions less like a standard publication and more like an infamous cultural artifact at this point.
That's a great way to put it.
It carries a certain, almost an electric charge just by existing in a room. Like if you see it on someone's bookshelf, you take notice.
You absolutely make a mental note.
Yeah.
And here's where we take a really sharp turn for this deep dive.
Right, this is the fun part. If you are tuning in right now expecting us to just, read down a table of contents or summarize all 48 laws one by one,
You're going to be very surprised.
Yeah, we are not doing that. In fact, we are not even opening the book today.
Not even to page 1.
Not a single page. Our mission today is highly specific and honestly, I think much more revealing than just reading the text.
I completely agree.
We are going to decode the incredibly potent messaging, the sort of unspoken promises, and the raw philosophy that is packed entirely into the physical packaging of this book.
Just the front and back covers.
Exactly. We are looking exclusively at the covers, which might sound crazy to some people listening.
Yeah, limiting our scope to just the cover might sound a bit restrictive at first glance.
Right. Like how much can you really talk about a dust jacket?
Exactly. But it is actually a masterclass in the very subject the book claims to teach.
Oh, totally.
The cover is not just a protective wrapper for the pages. It is a meticulously crafted psychological manifesto.
It really is.
Within just a few short paragraphs of marketing copy, the publishers managed to distill 3,000 years of history, invoke these legendary strategists, and hold up this stark, almost confrontational mirror to the reader.
It's honestly kind of terrifying how bold the claims on this cover actually are.
They do not hold back.
No, they don't. So we are going to unpack that. We're looking at the strategic use of language, the visual weight of the design itself, and really what it says about human nature, that this specific combination of words turned a historical treatise into an international phenomenon.
Because that's the real magic trick here. Before you even crack the spine, the cover has already started working on your subconscious.
It's already in your head.
Right. It's already running a diagnostic on your own ambition.
Yes. Okay, so let's just dive right into it. Let's start with the most fundamental question any piece of text has to answer, right? Who is this actually for?
Because the back cover, it does not mince words on this topic. It is aggressively direct.
Right at the top. Yeah.
Exactly. Printed in this assertive, bold text, it announces its audience. It literally reads, "The best-selling book for those who want power, watch power, or want to arm themselves against power."
Okay, let's pause right there. Because calling your product a manual for people who want power, and then calling the book amoral and ruthless, which we see right in the very next sentence.
Right.
That sounds like absolute career suicide for a marketing department.
It goes against every rule of PR.
Exactly. Because, I mean, if I am just a mid-level manager or, a normal person just trying to pay my mortgage and I'm browsing the bookstore on a Tuesday, I don't want to buy a book that essentially labels me as a sociopath.
Nobody wants to view themselves that way.
Right. Usually marketing leans into the positive. I mean, you sell a car based on its safety rating for your family.
Right, the crash test scores.
You don't sell it by advertising that its massive trunk and untraceable paint job make it the ultimate getaway vehicle for a bank robbery.
That would be a terrible ad campaign.
So why doesn't this aggressive, kind of nasty marketing just completely alienate the everyday reader? How did this sell millions of copies?
Well, this is where the sheer genius of the copywriting comes in. Because it actually provides you with an ironclad psychological alibi.
Okay, break that down for me.
Yeah.
An alibi.
Look at the architecture of that opening sentence again. The brilliance lies entirely in that third category of reader, those who want to arm themselves against power.
Oh, wow.
By positioning the book as a shield as well as a sword, the cover is offering the reader moral sanctuary.
So it's giving me an out.
Exactly. You can carry this heavy, intimidating Machiavellian book right up to the cash register and frankly, tell anyone who asks that you aren't buying it because you are ruthless.
Right, I'm a good person.
Right. You are buying it because the world is ruthless and you are simply trying to survive.
Oh, that is so insidious. It's brilliant, but it's insidious. So I literally never have to admit to my own dark ambitions. I can just claim I'm acting in self-defense.
Exactly. It completely exploits our deepest vulnerabilities.
How so?
Well, when you read that phrase, want to arm themselves against power, your brain immediately conjures up a specific face, doesn't it?
Oh, immediately.
Right. It conjures the face of that micro-tyrant manager you report to, or maybe the manipulative relative who ruins every single holiday dinner.
Or just the incredibly opaque corporate bureaucracy that denied your promotion for no clear reason.
Exactly. And in all of those situations, you feel perpetually unarmed. You feel powerless.
Totally.
So the cover promises you armor. It basically gives you full permission to engage with these highly taboo, dark subjects without ever feeling like you are compromising your own perceived goodness.
Wow. Okay, so that covers the first and the third groups. We have the people who openly want power and the people who claim they just want to defend against it.
Right.
But what about that middle category? What does it mean to watch power? Who is the watcher in this scenario?
So the watcher is essentially the voyeur in all of us.
The voyeur.
Yeah. This part of the copy appeals directly to the political junkies, the historians, the people who are, deeply obsessed with royal family drama, or those massive corporate succession battles.
Ah, like the people who just treat the news like it's a reality show.
Exactly. It promises those people a decoder ring for complex human behavior. It tells the reader, look, even if you have absolutely no desire to get your own hands dirty, don't you at least want to know how the magic trick is actually performed?
Right, like how did that CEO actually orchestrate that hostile takeover?
Yes. It taps into this fundamental human need to make sense of chaos. It subtly suggests that all these global events and boardroom shakeups aren't just random, chaotic occurrences.
They're not accidents.
Right. They're a series of deliberate, calculable, almost mathematical moves. And reading this book, the cover elevates you. It takes you from being a confused spectator just sitting in the stands and turns you into an enlightened observer up in the skybox.
Okay, so that hook is incredibly effective. It literally covers everyone. You want it, you fear it, or you're just curious about it.
It casts a massive net.
It really does. And then we hit that descriptive sentence right after. It boldly describes the work as, quote, amoral, cunning, ruthless, and instructive.
That word amoral is doing so much heavy lifting there.
I really want to push on that word, actually, because I think people constantly conflate amoral with immoral, and they're fundamentally different concepts, right?
Oh, entirely different.
Because immoral means you actually know what is right, and you actively choose to do something evil or wrong anyway.
Right. It requires a moral compass that you are actively choosing to ignore.
Exactly, but amoral is operating on a totally different frequency.
It is. The placement of amoral as the very first descriptive word is a deeply calculated semiotic trigger by the publisher.
A semiotic trigger.
Yeah, it sets a specific expectation. Amoral means lacking a moral sense entirely. It is totally unconcerned with the rightness or wrongness of a thing. It is purely neutral.
Right, like nature, gravity is amoral.
Perfect example. A tsunami is amoral. It doesn't hate you. It just destroys your house because that's what water and energy do.
So, by leading with this word, the cover is stripping away all those comforting illusions of ethics and fairness that usually govern the self-help section or the business section of a bookstore.
Exactly. It sets a distinctly objective, almost clinical tone for the whole book.
It's treating human interaction like a physics experiment. It's essentially telling the reader, listen, we aren't here to judge your actions, and we aren't here to judge history. We are literally just giving you the math.
Which is incredibly refreshing to a lot of people.
Yeah.
It promises the reader this unvarnished look at reality, completely free of judgment.
Because most business books don't do that.
No, most advice books constantly preach to you about how the world should be. You know, if you are just kind enough or collaborative enough or transparent enough, things will naturally work out for you.
Which we all know deep down isn't always true.
Right. This cover basically stops lying to you. It says it will report the physics of human ambition as it actually is, warts and all.
And there is something deeply intoxicating about that level of blunt honesty, isn't there?
Absolutely. Because by framing concepts like cunning and ruthless right underneath the umbrella of amoral, it neutralizes them.
And it takes the sting out.
Exactly. They cease to be character flaws. They just become mere tools in a toolbox.
Yeah.
The hammer doesn't have a conscience, right? It just drives the nail.
So if you're holding this book in the store, the cover has already reframed your entire worldview before you've even opened the flap to read the summary.
It really has.
It has established that power is this omnipresent game, the rules are totally unforgiving, and you really only have three choices. Learn the rules, learn to defend against them, or just remain completely oblivious and get crushed.
That's the implicit threat.
But to make you actually believe this clinical, amoral worldview is true, the cover can't just rely on a few aggressive adjectives. It has to prove its pedigree.
Right, it needs intellectual backing. Which brings us to the foundation the cover builds. The text pivots from its promises directly to its proof.
Right, it pulls from a very specific lineage to legitimize all these claims. The cover explicitly states that this, quote, piercing work distills 3,000 years of the history of power, synthesizing the philosophies of Machiavelli, Sun Tzu, Carl von Clausewitz, and other great thinkers.
That's quite a lineup.
Looking at those three names grouped together on a modern good jacket is just staggering. It is literally like assembling an all-star team of historical ruthlessness.
The Avengers of Manipulation.
Seriously. I mean, you have Machiavelli, who is the godfather of Renaissance political maneuvering. You have Sun Tzu, the ancient Eastern master of psychological warfare. And then you have Carl von Clausewitz, this 19th century titan of Western military strategy.
It's a very intentional grouping.
Why this specific trinity, though? Like, if I'm reading this in an airport bookstore, what are these three specific names doing to my brain?
Well, each of these names evokes a highly specific, complementary flavor of strategy in our collective cultural consciousness. They are essentially neurological triggers.
Okay, let's break down the architecture of this trio, then. Let's start with Machiavelli.
Niccolo Machiavelli is the immediate anchor for the modern reader. When that name hits the reader's eye, it instantly conjures up a very particular type of environment.
Yeah, it conjures whispers in the dark.
Exactly.
It's backroom political deals, poisoned goblets, the end justifies the means vibe. It feels very intimate, very interpersonal.
Machiavelli brings the element of raw, naked political realism. He represents the stark truth about so-called civilized society, which is that humans are driven primarily by self-interest, fear, and ego.
Right.
His inclusion on the cover tells the reader that this book will teach them how to navigate the treacherous waters of human deception in very close quarters.
So he is basically the patron saint of surviving a toxic workplace.
Or a divided royal court, yes. It's all about interpersonal leverage.
Okay, so Machiavelli covers the intimate political backstabbing side of power. But then the cover introduces Sun Tzu, the author of The Art of War. That shifts the geography entirely, doesn't it?
It does. Sun Tzu brings an entirely different dimension to the table fluidity. His philosophy is fundamentally about indirect warfare.
Indirect warfare. Meaning what, exactly?
Meaning his core tenet is that the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without ever fighting a physical battle.
Ah, winning before the fight even starts.
Exactly. When the reader sees Sun Tzu on the cover, the book is promising them the wisdom of deception, of immense patience, and of knowing the enemy's mind better than they know it themselves.
It promises that power isn't just about, brute force or who has the biggest army.
Right. It's about winning the battle in the psychological realm before you ever step onto the actual field.
I love that distinction. Machiavelli is the politician manipulating the court. Sun Tzu is the psychological trickster manipulating reality itself.
Beautifully put.
But then, and this is the one that really gets me, they drop a Prussian military theorist right in the middle of them.
Karl von Clausewitz.
Yes. Clausewitz completely changes the temperature of this cover. He is definitely less known to the general public than the other two, but to military historians, he is absolute bedrock.
Oh, he is foundational. Clausewitz grounds the theoretical in the brutal structural reality of total war.
Total war.
Yes. His seminal work on war is incredibly analytical. He brings the concept that, famously, war is simply the continuation of politics by other means.
Right. When talking fails, the cannons start firing.
Exactly. He focuses heavily on the friction of reality, the fog of war, and the absolute necessity of overwhelming, crushing force when conflict is finally unavoidable.
So he is not about trickery at all.
Not at all. He is about annihilation. Force meeting force.
But wait, let's bring this back to the listener for a second. Applying the philosophies of an ancient Chinese general, a Renaissance political survivor, and a Prussian military theorist to, say, a midweek status update meeting at a tech startup. That seems slightly unhinged.
It sounds completely absurd when you phrase it like that.
Right. I mean, if I try to use Clausewitz's theory of total war in the marketing department just because they missed a deadline by 2 days, I'm going to get fired, not promoted.
Well, sure, but the literal application isn't the point here. The psychological elevation is the point.
Psychological elevation. Explain that.
By synthesizing these three monumental thinkers, the cover is making a profound underlying claim to the reader. Everyday life is an active battlefield.
Oh, wow.
It takes your mundane, daily frustrations, the missed deadlines, the annoying boss, and it transforms them into monumental historical struggles. It tells you that the stakes of your life are always incredibly high.
It severely flatters the reader, doesn't it?
Enormously. It basically whispers in your ear, your problems with your boss aren't just petty corporate squabbles. They are the exact same fundamental struggles for power that have defined the rise and fall of empires.
That is such a seductive thought.
It is. It fundamentally raises the stakes of your normal human interactions. Suddenly, the person sitting across from you in a standard salary negotiation isn't just a colleague, they are an adversary.
The housing market isn't just commerce. It is a literal theater of war.
Exactly. And further, if anyone ever questions why you are reading such an aggressively titled book, these three names provide your ultimate intellectual shield.
Right. I'm not studying how to manipulate you. I'm just brushing up on classical history.
It is the ultimate intellectual alibi.
That is so clever. So the cover has established this amoral battlefield perspective on human relations, and it's backed it up with these historical titans.
Setting the stage perfectly.
But abstract philosophy only goes so far, right? The cover knows it has to give us a taste of the actual product. It has to show us the goods.
It needs to tease the actual laws.
Exactly. It teases 3 specific laws out of the 48. And what is really striking here is that these laws represent wildly contradictory approaches to survival.
They span the entire spectrum of human behavior.
They really do. It starts incredibly quietly. The blurb states, quote, "Some laws require prudence. Law 1, never outshine the master. Some stealth. Law 3, conceal your intentions."
Prudence and stealth.
Let's look at prudence first, because I really need to push back on Law 1 here.
Sure, go for it.
Never outshine the master just sounds like basic, depressing common sense. I mean, anyone who has ever survived working for a deeply insecure boss knows this instinctively.
It's survival 101.
Right. You don't walk into a huge presentation and purposely make the person who signs your paychecks look incompetent in front of the board of directors. You just don't do it.
No, you'd be packing your desk by 3 p.m.
Exactly. So does framing this basic, polite etiquette as a grand law of power make us unnecessarily paranoid? Or is there a deeper psychological mechanism at play here?
It is a phenomenal reframing of a very common behavior. On the surface, yes, you're right, it resembles basic common sense or workplace survival. But we usually tell ourselves a very comforting story about that specific behavior.
What do you mean?
Well, when we bite our tongue in a meeting, we tell ourselves we're being respectful or polite or knowing our place. We frame holding our tongue as a moral virtue.
Oh, right. We call it being a team player.
Exactly, I'm just being a good team player. The cover shatters that comforting illusion completely.
By calling it a law of power.
Right. By elevating it to Law 1, the absolute foundation of power, it reframes that exact same quiet behavior. It's no longer subservience. It is calculated predation.
Calculated predation? That is intense.
It is. Prudence, in this specific context, requires a cold, highly predatory emotional intelligence. It requires you to actively assess the fragility, the ego, and the deep insecurities of the person sitting above you.
And then use that assessment.
And then deliberately dial down your own brilliance just to avoid triggering their fear. It transforms the completely passive act of being quiet into an active, offensive strategy.
That completely changes the entire internal monologue of the listener.
How so?
Well, suddenly you aren't biting your tongue because you are weak or because you lack confidence. You are biting your tongue because you are a sleeper agent.
Yes.
You are biding your time. You are gathering resources. That is a massively empowering flip in perspective for someone who maybe feels marginalized or trapped in a corporate hierarchy.
It gives them agency in a situation where they previously felt powerless. And this leads directly into the second law teased on the cover.
Right, stealth.
If prudence is about managing the egos of those directly above you, stealth is about offensive unpredictability. Law 3, conceal your intentions.
This law feels like a direct head-on attack on modern culture.
It really does cut against the grain of the current zeitgeist.
Completely, because we live in an era that absolutely worships radical transparency. We are constantly told to build our companies in public, to share our goals on LinkedIn, to bring our authentic selves to everything we do, to post our entire personal lives online.
Authenticity is the modern buzzword.
Right. And here is Law 3 demanding the exact opposite: hide everything. Why is stealth so critical in this worldview?
Because in the amoral worldview established by this cover, information is the ultimate currency, and therefore it is the ultimate weapon.
Information is a weapon.
Exactly. If people know what you truly want, they can instantly map your trajectory. If they can predict your moves, they can block you, they can exploit you, or they can construct a toll booth on your exact path.
Oh, that makes so much sense. Think about buying a car or a house.
Classic negotiation scenario.
Right. If you walk into an open house and instantly violate Law 3 by saying to the realtor, "Oh my God, this is my absolute dream home. My kids love the yard. I have to have it," you have just handed the seller all your leverage.
Every ounce of it.
You revealed your intentions, and the asking price instantly goes up in their mind.
Precisely. By denying others the information they need to counter your moves, you retain absolute control over the board. It forces you to operate behind a constant, deliberate smokescreen.
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
It is. But the promise here is highly seductive. It's the idea that you can move through your career and your life, extracting exactly what you need, while everyone around you is completely blind to your actual agenda until the exact moment you secure the win.
Until it's too late for them to stop you.
Exactly.
Okay, so we have prudence, which is this defensive ego management, and we have stealth, which is operating in the shadows to maintain asymmetry of information.
Both very quiet strategies.
Right, both of these are quiet. They involve immense restraint, but there is a limit to subtlety, right? I mean, you can only hide in the shadows for so long before you actually have to strike.
You have to make a move eventually.
And the cover knows that, which is why it yanks the reader from stealth straight into absolute brutality.
The transition on the back cover here is specifically designed to give the reader whiplash.
It really is.
It moves from the subtle arts of deception directly to the absolute extreme end of human behavior.
The text warns that some laws require the, quote, total absence of mercy, explicitly citing Law 15, crush your enemy totally.
It's a shocking escalation.
And then it adds this incredibly chilling caveat right after. It says, but like it or not, all have applications in real-life situations.
That phrase is doing so much work.
You just have to imagine standing in the aisle of Barnes & Noble, surrounded by all these gentle titles about, synergy, finding your inner peace, leading with empathy, and you pick up this heavy brick of a book that literally commands you to crush your enemy. Totally.
The shock value alone is immense.
It is. It feels almost dangerous to hold.
Well, it's an intentional, visceral shock to the system. It is designed by the marketers to test the reader's stomach. Remember the very first word we discussed?
Yeah.
Amoral.
Right.
Law 15 is the physical embodiment of that ruthless promise. It is the cover telling the reader, look, we were not speaking metaphorically earlier. We are not playing a game here.
We meant what we said. But let's look at the actual mechanism of that follow-up phrase. Like it or not, all have applications in real-life situations. That is where the trap really closes on the reader, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. That small phrase is a masterstroke of psychological manipulation.
How so?
Well, like it or not, anticipates the civilized reader's natural revulsion. It knows that a well-adjusted, normal person will read total absence of mercy and physically recoil.
Right, because we aren't sociopaths.
Exactly. By saying like it or not, the author steps right into the role of the stern, uncompromising teacher dealing with a naive student. It communicates, listen, you can cling to your little idealism if you want. You could be deeply offended by this harsh language. But your personal offense will not change the structural reality of the world.
The world doesn't care if you're offended.
Exactly. It challenges the listener directly.
But honestly, and I really want to drill down into this, what does crushing an enemy totally actually look like today?
It's a fair question.
Because I am not commanding a legion of troops. I'm not salting the earth of a rival city-state so nothing ever grows there again. If this book insists it has real-life applications, how does absolute destruction manifest in modern daily life?
The concept of total destruction hasn't disappeared. It has simply mutated. The cover is suggesting that this dynamic of absolute annihilation exists all around us, just in sterilized modern forms.
Okay, give me an example. What does that actually look like?
It looks like a hostile corporate takeover, one where the acquired company's leadership isn't just politely let go with a nice severance package.
Right, they aren't just fired.
No, their industry reputations are actively dismantled through coordinated whisper campaigns, so they can never secure venture funding for a rival firm ever again.
Oh, wow. So you don't just take their job, you take their entire future in the industry.
Exactly. Or, on a more personal level, it looks like a brutal, scorched earth divorce proceeding.
Oh, those can be vicious.
Where one party doesn't just want an equitable 50-50 split of the financial assets. They actively seek to alienate the children, bankrupt the ex-spouse through endless grinding litigation, and permanently ruin their social standing in their community.
Complete annihilation of the person's life.
Yes. It looks like political campaigns that completely ignore policy debates in favor of unearthing decades-old personal scandals, specifically designed to destroy an opponent's livelihood and humiliate their family.
You see it constantly in social dynamics, too, especially with younger demographics.
Social media has amplified it.
Oh, completely. The coordinated excommunication of a person from a friend group or a professional circle.
Cancel culture, in a way.
Exactly. It is not enough to simply stop returning their calls. Everyone else in the network must be actively convinced or pressured to isolate them as well. It's complete social starvation.
You've nailed it. The modern arena of total destruction is reputational, financial, and social annihilation.
That is deeply chilling.
It is. And the book, via this specific text on the cover, brings a sense of profound danger to the act of reading it. It reminds the reader that if you leave an adversary wounded, but professionally or socially alive,
they will come back for you.
They will spend the rest of their days plotting your downfall. By highlighting Law 15 so prominently, the cover is asking the reader a very direct, terrifying question. The people you are competing against are playing for keeps. Are you?
It is terrifying, but it also validates every single paranoid thought you've ever had when dealing with a ruthless competitor.
It tells you that your paranoia is justified.
So the cover has established its amoral philosophy, it has leaned heavily on ancient strategists, and it has laid out the extreme, terrifying spectrum of its laws.
From quiet prudence to total destruction.
Exactly. To prove that these rules aren't just theoretical musings, the cover provides a roster of historical figures who supposedly utilize them. And this brings us to what might actually be the strangest, most revealing part of the entire packaging.
The curated list of historical proof. This is fascinating.
It really is. The cover states that these laws are, quote, illustrated through the tactics of Queen Elizabeth I, Henry Kissinger, P.T. Barnum, and other famous figures who wielded or been victimized by power.
Quite the guest list.
I mean, just pause and appreciate the sheer absurdity of that grouping. Imagine trying to host that dinner party.
It would be incredibly awkward.
You have a 16th century English monarch sitting there in full royal regalia. You have a 20th century geopolitical diplomat with his thick glasses and gravelly voice. And then you have a 19th century American circus showman in a top hat.
It sounds like the setup to a terrible joke.
It really does. A queen, a diplomat, and a circus barker walk into a bar. Why, out of the thousands and thousands of historical figures available to the authors, did they choose this specific bizarre trio for the back cover?
Because strategically, for a marketing department, it covers the entire landscape of human ambition.
How do you mean?
They represent vastly different, non-overlapping domains of power. Let's decode what these specific names are actually communicating to the reader's subconscious.
Okay, let's start with the queen.
Queen Elizabeth I is the anchor here. Why her?
Well, to me, she is the ultimate symbol of surviving a viper's nest.
Exactly. Elizabeth I represents high-stakes, literal life-or-death survival within the corridors of absolute inherited power.
Because her position was never truly secure.
Never. She ascended to the throne of a deeply fractured nation. She was constantly surrounded by enemies both domestic and foreign, many of whom actively wanted her dead.
Her own family members wanted her dead.
Right. Her entire reign was a perpetual, decades-long exercise in balancing competing factions, playing powerful, ambitious men against one another, and just avoiding assassination.
So she represents sheer survival.
Yes. When a reader sees her name, it invokes the idea of power as a perilous, dizzying tightrope walk. It appeals directly to the reader who feels surrounded by rivals in their own organization, who feels like they're swimming with sharks and needs to learn how to keep their head attached in a toxic, cutthroat environment.
She is the absolute archetype of ruling through calculated ambiguity. She never fully committed to anyone.
Right. She kept everyone guessing, so she represents the ultimate survival power.
Okay, then we jump 4 centuries ahead to Henry Kissinger. He operates in a completely different universe than an absolute monarch.
A totally different board. Henry Kissinger represents modern, highly calculated realpolitik. He is the physical embodiment of global systemic chess.
Because he didn't have the divine right of kings.
No, he operated within modern bureaucratic democratic structures, and yet he wielded immense world-shaping influence.
His inclusion on the cover is also fascinating because he is such a deeply polarizing figure.
Highly polarizing.
I mean, to some people, he is a brilliant statesman who opened relations with China and managed the Cold War. To others, he is a ruthless architect of incredibly controversial, destructive foreign policies.
War crimes, essentially, depending on who you ask.
Right. But the cover doesn't offer a moral judgment on him either way.
And that loops right back to the word amoral. By featuring Kissinger so prominently, the cover reinforces that it simply does not care about the morality of his actions. It only cares about the efficacy of his tactics.
Did it work? That's the only question.
Exactly. His name promises the reader access to the secrets of high-level negotiation, back-channel diplomacy, and the cold mathematical calculus of prioritizing your own interests above absolutely all other concerns, including humanitarian ones.
He represents power completely stripped of all ideology.
Yes. If Elizabeth I is about surviving a royal court, Kissinger is about manipulating a massive modern system to get what you want.
And then we get the wild card.
The best one.
P.T. Barnum, the circus guy. The man famous for Cardiff giant hoaxes and the phrase, "there's a sucker born every minute." How on earth does a carnival barker fit in with a queen and a secretary of state?
It seems crazy, but Barnum is arguably the most crucial inclusion for the modern reader who is trying to navigate the current economy.
Really? More than Kissinger?
Absolutely, because Barnum represents the power of spectacle, the manipulation of the masses, and the absolute total control of the narrative.
He was the original PR spin doctor.
He was. He was not a politician, and he commanded no armies. He was just a businessman who fundamentally understood that reality matters far less than perception.
That ties perfectly back to Law 3, doesn't it? Conceal your intentions. Barnum was the grandmaster of the smokescreen. He made you look exactly where he wanted you to look.
Exactly. And think about our current era. We live in an economy driven almost entirely by attention, by social media algorithms, and by personal branding.
The attention economy.
Right. Barnum's brand of power is the most applicable to us today. He teaches how to manufacture hype out of thin air. He teaches how to distract the public from your weaknesses, and most importantly, how to turn outrage and controversy into cold, hard profit.
Which is literally the playbook for modern influencers and politicians.
It is the exact playbook. So, by placing him on equal footing with Elizabeth I and Kissinger, the cover is making a profound structural argument to the reader.
Which is what?
That these psychological mechanisms used to sell tickets to see a fake mermaid.
The Fiji mermaid.
Right. Those are the exact same psychological mechanisms used to rule a country or negotiate a nuclear treaty.
Oh, wow.
It flattens the hierarchy of history. It tells you that at its core, it is all just the manipulation of human perception.
That is a staggering insight. A circus showman and a monarch are basically playing the exact same game, just on different sized boards.
Exactly.
And look at the tiny phrase that follows this list of names on the cover. It says, these figures wielded or been victimized by power. The addition of, or been victimized by, is doing so much psychological work there.
It is the final turn of the screw on the reader's latent anxiety.
It really is.
It reinforces the central thesis of the whole book. That non-participation is simply not an option for you. You cannot opt out of the game of power just because you find it distasteful.
You can't just take your ball and go home.
No. You are either the wielder or you are the victim. You are either Elizabeth I or you are the cousin she had imprisoned and executed.
You're either Barnum or you are the sucker buying the ticket.
Exactly. It's binary.
It's essentially a threat. It's telling the reader, look, if you don't buy this book right now and learn these laws so you can be a Kissinger, you will inevitably end up as collateral damage to someone who did.
It creates an immense, immediate sense of urgency to buy the book.
It really does. And this intoxicating, dense mix of messaging, the promise of amoral instruction, the invocation of ancient strategists, the extreme spectrum of the laws, the historical proof, and that subtle threat of victimization.
All of this incredibly careful packaging.
All of it has clearly resonated on a massive scale. I mean, the physical book itself bears the stamps of its cultural triumph.
It wears its success on its sleeve.
Let's look at the verdict of the press, because the cover proudly displays its mainstream footprint. This is not some underground, self-published manual passed around in dark alleys.
No, it is a massive pillar of mainstream publishing.
Right. On the front cover, there is a prominent seal declaring it an international bestseller. And the visual design itself, I mean, the stark, aggressive red background, the solid blue vertical stripe, the heavy, unyielding font spelling out P-O-W-E-R. It looks like a gold brick. It looks like a monument. It feels heavy in your hands.
The visual weight of the cover is entirely designed to reinforce the gravity of the text inside. But the social proof provided by the press quotes on the back cover that is highly revealing about our culture.
We have two major quotes featured. At the very bottom in red text is a quote from the Express, which calls the contents, quote, essential rules for the new Machiavellis.
Let's unpack that.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Because to be called Machiavellian in daily life is almost universally an insult.
Oh, it's a huge red flag.
Right. It means you are deceitful, toxic, untrustworthy. But here, plastered on the back of a multi-million copy mainstream bestseller, it is being worn as a badge of honor.
It implies a sort of secret elite fraternity.
The new Machiavellis.
Exactly. It normalizes sociopathy by framing it as historical continuity.
Historical continuity, meaning nothing has changed.
Right. It implies that despite all our technological advancements, our modern democratic institutions, our HR departments, and our supposed enlightenment, the core of the human condition hasn't evolved one single inch past the brutal, backstabbing politics of 16th century Florence.
We are still just apes in suits.
Exactly. The game is identical. Only the weaponry has been upgraded.
Right, so instead of slipping actual poison into a rival's goblet at a banquet,
the weapons of the new Machiavelli are ironclad non-compete clauses, algorithmic manipulation, and corporate restructuring that just happens to eliminate your rival's entire department.
The battlefield just moved from the cobblestone streets into the air-conditioned boardroom.
But the war never stopped. And by calling them essential rules, the quote essentially validates ruthless behavior as a totally necessary component of modern professional life.
It gives you permission to be ruthless. And then we have the quote from the Times featured prominently right below the opening hook. It simply says, if power is your ultimate goal, this is the book you need.
That quote is fascinating.
It really is. Think about the perspective of the listener holding this book. The Times is a paper of record. It is the voice of the civilized establishment. And this quote is fascinating because it completely removes any moral judgment from the reading experience whatsoever.
It frames the entire book as a simple utilitarian tool.
Exactly. It presents a clean mathematical if-then proposition.
Yeah.
If your goal is power, then you need this tool.
Notice what it actively doesn't do.
What's that?
It doesn't ask why you want power. It doesn't question if your desire for power is healthy or ethical or destructive to your community. It is a purely functional endorsement.
It's totally neutral.
It is akin to a review for a hammer that just says, if driving nails is your ultimate goal, this is the hammer you need.
It legitimizes the pursuit of absolute control as a completely valid, mundane goal. Like, you want to learn to bake sourdough bread, buy a cookbook. You want to learn to crush your enemies totally and salt the earth, buy this book.
It completely normalizes the taboo.
It really does. It takes this incredibly dense, aggressive, ruthless philosophy, and it wraps it in the highly respectable, sanitized endorsement of mainstream journalism.
And that is the ultimate triumph of this cover's engineering. It manages to present these dangerous, subversive, and historically destructive ideas as essential mainstream professional development.
It's required reading for the ambitious.
It convinces the reader that to ignore these laws is not a sign of moral superiority. It's a sign of dangerous terminal naivety.
Let's take a breath and just zoom out for a second. We have spent this entire deep dive dissecting just the front and back cover of one single book.
Just a few paragraphs of text.
The sheer density of the messaging we've uncovered is staggering.
It's a masterpiece of marketing psychology.
We saw how it hooks the reader by acknowledging the unspoken reality of the world, that power exists, it is deeply unfair, and it simply must be dealt with.
Right. And we saw how it provides that brilliant psychological safety net, offering itself as a defensive shield against power, while simultaneously promising amoral, cunning, and ruthless offensive instruction.
The perfect alibi. We examine how it leverages the massive intellectual weight of Machiavelli, Sun Tzu, and Clausewitz to transform the petty squabbles of everyday life into a high-stakes historical battlefield.
Making every reader feel like a general.
Exactly. We looked at the terrifying spectrum of the laws themselves, from the quiet, predatory prudence of managing a boss's ego in Law 1 to the absolute, total social destruction demanded by Law 15.
And we explored that bizarre dinner party of Elizabeth I, Henry Kissinger, and P.T. Barnum.
Proving that these tactics are universal, whether you are running a global empire, negotiating a treaty, or just running a media circus.
It is a meticulously constructed mirror. The cover does not just describe the contents of the pages inside. It actively diagnoses the psychological state of the person holding it.
It asks you a question.
It asks you how hungry you are, how scared you are of your environment, and how much of stark, brutal reality you are actually willing to face.
Which leaves us with a final, deeply provocative thought. Something for you, the listener, to mull over long after you finish listening to us today.
A paradox.
Exactly. It is a paradox created purely by the source text we've examined today, because we read that this book is an international bestseller.
Millions of copies.
We know that millions and millions of copies are circulating out in the world right now, on desks, in briefcases, on bookshelves. We also read that it advises you explicitly in Law 3 to use stealth and to conceal your intentions.
Right, to hide your true motives.
It teaches you to hide everything from everyone around you. So here's the paradox. If someone, a colleague, a trusted friend, a mentor, or leader in your company proudly displays this book on their desk or casually recommends it to you,
how can you ever trust their intentions again?
Exactly. If they are actively studying a manual that explicitly instructs them to deceive you, isn't the very act of showing you the book a complete contradiction?
It's a massive red flag.
Or worse, is showing you the book a deliberate, calculated misdirection to make you think they're being transparent while they are actually running a game on you.
Law 3 in action.
Does the very act of reading this book and knowing that millions of others in your industry have read it fundamentally change how you must view the world?
I think it has to.
If everyone is secretly learning to conceal their intentions, then transparency is truly dead. Keep your eyes open, watch the players around you, and question absolutely everything. Remember where we started today. The mechanics of control are rarely visible to the naked eye. The X-ray machine is broken. We are all operating in the dark.